Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast. Today is Thursday, December 10th, 2020. Today, I'm going to go over yesterday's college basketball games and look ahead to today's shorter slate of games. College football, there's a game on tonight. Actually, no, there's two games on tonight. We'll preview and pick them. NFL, there's a Thursday night game. We will preview and pick that. Do my weekly NFL power rankings. Discuss some NBA protocols for COVID. Masked Singer from last night, the holiday edition, and my best bet of the day. All right, we'll start with college basketball. We'll breeze through the results and look ahead to tonight's slate. So, without further ado, here we go. Radford over Mars Hill, 98-50. Campbell over New Orleans, 79-70. Loyola Chicago over Chicago State, 88-51. St. Francis Brooklyn over Bryant, 93-91. Fairleigh Dickinson over Central Connecticut State, 79-71. Number 13, Wisconsin over Rhode Island, 73-62. Cincinnati over Furman, 78-73. Clemson over Maryland, 67-51. Providence over TCU, 79-70. Miami of Ohio over Western Illinois, 67-57. Number 19, Richmond over Northern Iowa, 78-68. Warren State over Transylvania, 77-55. Michigan over Toledo, 91-71. Number 17, Texas Tech over Abilene Christian, 51-44. Youngstown State over Point Park, 72-52. Eastern Michigan over Adrian, 95-35. Jacksonville over Florida National, 78-69. Arizona over Cal State Bakersfield, 85-60. VC over NC A&T, 95-59. UNC Wilmington over St. Andrews, 116-66. The Citadel over Carver, 102-51. Hofstra over Stony Brook, 72-67. Valparaiso over SIU Edwardsville, 80-58. Marshall over Charleston, 84-72. Evansville over Eastern Illinois, 68-65. Arkansas Pine Bluff upsets Arkansas State, 75-74. Lamar over UO Monroe, 63-60. Chattanooga over Bellarmine, 77-68. Number 20, Florida State over Indiana, 69-67 in overtime on a game-winning floater by Scotty Barnes. Georgia Tech over Nebraska, 75-64. Louisiana Tech over Southeast Louisiana, 78-69. UAB over Tuckasegee, 89-64. Number 2, Baylor over Stephen F. Austin, 83-52. Number 13, Texas over Texas State, 74-55. Arkansas over Southern, 79-44. San Jose State over Fresno Pacific, 87-79. Drake over McKendree, 90-66. Southern Utah over Utah Valley, 81-71. Tulane over Southern Miss, 58-38. Lipscomb over Southeast Missouri State, 80-74 in overtime. Xavier over Oklahoma, 99-77. Missouri over Liberty, 69-60. Northern Colorado over Colorado Christian, 87-62. Santa Clara over Cal Poly, 76-69. Pepperdine over Cal, 74-62. Washington State over Idaho, 61-58. UCLA over San Diego, 83-56. Boise State over BYU, 74-70. Wyoming over Denver, 83-61. Pitt over Northwestern, 71-70 on a game-winning 3 by Justin Champagne. Washington over Seattle, 73-41. And Oregon over Florida A&M, 81-66. Tonight's slate, as I mentioned at the top, is very, very short compared to the last two nights. So, without further ado, here we go. 1 o'clock, Florida National Campbell, we can skip. 2 o'clock, Purdue Northwest Ohio, we can skip. Mount St. Joseph, Western Illinois, we can skip. 4 o'clock, Mercyhurst Buffalo, we can skip. 5 o'clock, New Orleans Jacksonville. I project New Orleans by a half point as a favorite. And the line for that game is not posted on FanDuel or on ESPN at the moment. I'm just going to say New Orleans will win. North Florida, East Carolina. I project East Carolina by 2.5, and they're giving 14.5. I'm taking the 14.5 with North Florida. That's too many points. All right, 6 o'clock, Transylvania, Morehead State, we could skip. Region Hampton canceled. Wofford, South Carolina canceled. 6:30, ESPN 3, North Dakota, South Dakota. So you got the Dakotas in a Summit League showcase. I project South Dakota by 6, and South Dakota's giving 3.5. So I'm going to lay the 3.5. with South Dakota over North Dakota. 7 o'clock, UNC Greensboro and Coppin State. I project UNC Greensboro as a 25.5-point favorite. And UNC Greensboro is laying 17.5. So I'm going to lay the 17.5 with UNC Greensboro, although there's juice on it at minus 114. Florida College Stetson, we can skip. Mercer VMI. So you got a SoCon game tonight. Mercer, I project as a 9-point favorite. Mercer's giving 7.5. I'm going to lay the 7.5 at Mercer, and it's valuable at minus 104. Troy, North Alabama. I project North Alabama by 15. North Alabama's giving 5.5, so I'm going to lay the 5.5 with North Alabama with the juice at minus 115. Boise, Eastern Kentucky canceled. Merrimack, Long Island postponed. 8 o'clock, SEC New York, Jackson State against Ole Miss. I project Ole Miss by 23. Ole Miss is giving 21.5. So I'm going to lay it with Ole Miss, although there's a little bit of juice at minus 112. Portland State, Oregon State, or just Portland, Oregon State on the Pac-12 network. I project Oregon State by 16.5. They're laying 14.5, so I'm going to lay the 14.5 with Oregon State. Some of my lines have actually been within 2 or a 1.5 so far today. All right, next up, UMKC against Minnesota on Fox Sports 1. I project Minnesota by 19.5, and Minnesota is giving 18.5, so 1 point off. I'm going to go with the total, 137.5, and I'm going to take the over. Minnesota, I think, is a good offense, and UMKC, I don't think is that great defensively. So going to be over 137.5 in UMKC versus Minnesota. UC Riverside in Northern Arizona. I project Riverside by 11. Riverside's giving 6.5, so I'm going to lay the 6.5 at minus 112 with UC Riverside. Gardner-Webb in Western Kentucky. I project Western Kentucky by 11.5. They're giving 16.5. So this is probably one of the first underdogs I'm going to have to take tonight here with Gardner-Webb plus the 16.5. Next up, CU, Harrodsburg, and Nichols. We could skip that. Texas Rio Grande and Texas A&M Corpus Christi. I project Rio Grande by 19.5. And they're only giving 3.5. So I'm going to lay the 3.5 with Texas Rio Grande Valley against A&M Corpus Christi. 9 o'clock, Long Beach State and San Francisco. I project San Francisco by 18.5. And San Francisco is giving 16.5. So 2 points off. I'm going to lay it anyway with San Francisco. 2-point edge at minus 105 for minus 16.5. Summit showdown between North Dakota State and South Dakota State. South Dakota State I project as a 5-point favorite. They're only giving 7.5. I'm going to take North Dakota State plus a 7.5 at minus 104. So that's a valuable play there. Southern at number 1 Gonzaga canceled. Alcorn State Cal Baptist canceled. And 10 o'clock Fox Sports 1 San Diego State against Arizona State. So 23 against 24. San Diego State's 24. Arizona State is 23. I project Arizona State by 1.5. They're laying 4.5. So I'm taking San Diego State plus the 4.5. I don't like betting against Bobby Hurley, but I have to do so here. It's a 3-point edge on San Diego State. So give me San Diego State plus the 4.5. I think it's a close game. I think Bobby Hurley's team will find a way to win a super-duper close game, although I don't think that they will cover the point spread. Okay, now I'm going to preview and predict tonight's college football games. As I mentioned at the top, 2 games tonight, 1 Conference USA and 1 ACC. We'll start with the Conference USA game, and that is between FAU and Southern Miss. I project FAU by 7.5, total 44.5. Meanwhile, FAU is giving 9.5, and the total is 43.5. I'm going to take Southern Miss plus the 9.5 at minus 112. In that game, 2-point edge there. I think Miss will keep it competitive. Low scoring game for sure. So give me Southern Miss plus the 9.5, although juice at minus 112. And then Pitt against Georgia Tech, I project Pitt by 7.5, total of 57. Meanwhile, Pitt's giving 6.5, total is 54.5. I'm going to take over 54.5. I think that neither of these teams could stop the ball. And these offenses have each shown some flashes throughout the season. So give me over 54.5, although heavy juice at minus 118. Alrighty, now we'll do NFL for tonight, Thursday Night Football. The Patriots at the Rams. So that's an interesting game between a team that is coming off a throttling of a victory and a team that is coming off a good division victory in an important division victory as well. I project the Rams as 4-point favorites, total of 43. Meanwhile, the Rams are giving 4.5 and the total is 44.5. My numbers are really, really tight together. I have no choice but to play the under 44.5 at minus 110, and I don't mind it. Rams and Patriots are traditionally under teams throughout the season. I think that the defenses of each team will make some big stops, and I think that the Patriots are going to be very run heavy, although it's going to be difficult to run on the Rams, especially Aaron Donald. And then they're going to try passing, and Cam Newton really hasn't had a good passing season. His successes more came on the ground this year and the running game. So give me the under 44.5. And on the flip side, Jared Goff is like a feast or famine quarterback. Like he's either terrible or awesome. And I think Belichick can draw some stuff up to make him look bad. So, and the other storyline here is that this is a Super Bowl rematch from the 2018 season. But obviously Tom Brady was the quarterback of the Patriots, not Cam Newton. So I really wouldn't consider it a rematch unless if it was maybe Bucs-Rams rather than Patriots-Rams. And we saw Bucs-Rams recently this season. So give me under 44.5 between the Patriots and the Rams. I'm going to say that the Rams win 23-20 in a low-scoring game, and then they get a late kick to win it. So 23-20 Rams is my official prediction for tonight, and that would mean under 44.5. All right. Now I'm going to do my NFL power rankings for the week, and then I'm going to do some takeaways on every team. We're at the 3/4 mark already. I haven't done power rankings in a couple weeks because it's been so busy. All right. 32 is the New York Jets. I mean, the Jets have been number 30 all year. And they're just terrible. Adam Gase is going to get fired. Sam Darnold, I don't think, will be the quarterback next year. Maybe the Colts or somebody will take a look at him, the Bears. 31, the Jacksonville Jaguars. They've lost a number of games in a row since winning week 1 against the Colts. That was really the game that had everybody thrown off. And they're probably going to have a new quarterback next year. And Gardner Minshew, who knows if we'll see him again this year. I think they're purposely sitting him so they could lose. And Doug Marrone will probably get fired. And they'll start afresh. Number 30, the Cincinnati Bengals. It's just unfortunate with them that the Joe Burrow injury is the reason why they're here. And obviously, I don't think they're going to win a game the rest of the season, the Bengals, personally. And now in the draft, they better hope they land the blue chipper to help build that team along with Joe Burrow. 29, the Dallas Cowboys. Boy, have things fallen hard. They are just inept offensively and bad defensively. They're the worst team in the NFC East and the NFC, period, as of the moment. Number 28, the Los Angeles Chargers. This is probably an overreaction ranking because of how bad they were. Justin Herbert, I don't think, should be the Rookie of the Year anymore solely because of that performance. That was a disgrace. And plus, they have a losing record. I'm telling you, he reminds me of Daniel Jones from last year. Has some flashy moments, is on a terrible team. But the difference between Herbert and Jones is that Herbert has more talent around him than Daniel Jones. So, the Chargers have just flat out underachieved this year. Derwin James hurt too. Anthony Lynn's another coach that I think is going to get fired. 27, the Philadelphia Eagles. Carson Wentz benched for Jalen Hurts. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes. I think this is going to determine the fate of Doug Peterson, personally. And it's been a couple of years since that Super Bowl, and I think that Eagles organization knows that, and maybe they'll look to draft a new quarterback potentially if this Hurts thing doesn't work out. Number 26, the Chicago Bears. We talked about them a little bit earlier and how they might need to draft a new quarterback or potentially trade for one. Matt Nagy's another coach that I think is going to get the axe at the end of the season. And boy, is that team falling apart. They've lost 6 straight, and they should have beaten the Lions, but there was a fumble at the end of that game, and then Lions took advantage. Now they have another shot to finally get a win this week against the Texans. 25, the Denver Broncos. This team's been feast or famine. They came close to beating the Chiefs. They get blown out by Atlanta. And then it was unfortunate that all their quarterbacks had COVID that 1 week, but I don't know if they ever beaten the Saints even with Drew Lock. Or maybe it would have been more competitive with Drew Lock. But there's just so much mixed about Drew Lock, and it shows in his performance as well. So maybe that's another team that drafts a quarterback. 24, the Carolina Panthers. Teddy Bridgewater hasn't really been healthy the second half of the season. Neither is Christian McCaffrey. The regression finally came through, and everyone said that Matt Rule is the best first-year head coach. Not anymore. I'll tell you who that is going to be in the second year. Number 23, the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are the NFC's feast or famine team. They kill Denver and then they lose to the Saints. And the game against the Chargers on Sunday, good luck betting that. 22, the Washington Professional Football Team. Alex Smith's the comeback player of the year, and that is a guarantee at this point, especially him leading that team to the big win over Pittsburgh to keep their hopes in the NFC East alive. Ron Rivera has to be in the consideration for Coach of the Year as well. Number 21, the New York Football Giants. The Giants are out of the bottom 10. Repeat, the New York Football Giants are out of the bottom 10 of the power rankings. And they should be. They've been playing like a team that's not one of the 10 worst teams in the league. And so is Washington. And the best new coach in the league is Joe Judge, not Matt Rule. If it was Matt Rule, then maybe he'd be winning games without Christian McCaffrey and Teddy Bridgewater. They won one, but that was only one, and they've looked like shit since some of the other weeks. And Matt Rule has blown some of these games, most notably against Minnesota. And then Joey Sly missed the kick against the Chiefs, but you weren't beating the Chiefs anyway. And that was a game they had McCaffrey in, though, against Kansas City. But yeah, Joe Judge is, to me, the best new coach in the NFL. He should be the coach of the year, rallying this Giants team without Saquon Barkley. And they didn't have Daniel Jones last week to 4 straight victories, including that big win at Seattle. So yeah, to me, Joe Judge should be the coach of the year, especially if they win the NFC East. To me, If the Giants win the NFC East, Joe Judge should be the coach of the year. If not, then Brian Flores at Miami. And that's who Joe Judge reminds me of in a lot of ways, because he, like Brian Flores, got a lot out of his guys from a team that was its perspective was that they were one of the worst teams in the league. And Joe Judge has really made the Giants into a team that's super duper competitive each and every week, with the exception of the game against San Francisco. And he's just a very fiery guy, and I think he's going to be in the NFL for a long time. Number 20, the Detroit Lions. Matt Patricia's gone. Darrell Bevell's the new intern coach. They got the win with him against the Bears, but that was more about the Bears collapsing than the Lions winning, just like Week 1. Oh, wait, Week 1 was more about the Lions collapsing rather than the Bears getting that win. So it's the other way around the second time those two teams met. Number 19, the Houston Texans. It's just unfortunate that Will Fuller's out for the year due to the PED suspension. He probably cost himself a lot of money because he's going to be a free agent. Deshaun Watson is still Deshaun Watson, but he's just stuck on this bad team. And I'm interested to see who they wind up hiring, because obviously Romeo Crennel is not the answer. 18, the San Francisco 49ers. This is another feast or famine team. It's like every other week this team shows up and gets a nice win, and the other week they either shit the bed or are very competitive and come darn close, which the latter was the case there. They were very competitive against Buffalo, and they came pretty close to winning that game. And their game against Washington is going to be very interesting, because Washington's playing for a division title, and San Fran, I think, still wants to play hard and likes to play spoiler. And they're a super-duper dark horse to get that one of those wild card spots, because Arizona's falling apart, and Minnesota I don't think is a guarantee either. And then obviously the second-place NFC East team between Giants and Washington, I think, is in play for that 7th spot in the NFC as well. 17, the New England Patriots. This might be an overreaction rating because they kicked ass against the Chargers. And they've actually played pretty well over the last couple weeks, beating the Ravens in that snow game. Come from behind to beat the Jets. So I don't think the Patriots are all that bad. Their defense stinks. But their defense didn't stink against Justin Herbert. But then again, Bill Belichick has that great record against rookie quarterbacks too. And I'm very interested to see how they look tonight against the Rams. Number 16, the Minnesota Vikings. We talked about the Vikings a couple seconds ago, how they're a candidate to be that last playoff team in the NFC. Dalvin Cook, to me, has to be in the conversation for Offensive Player of the Year. Adam Thielen's been marvelous. And Justin Jefferson, to me, should be the Offensive Rookie of the Year, especially if they make the playoffs. To me, Herbert, with that stink bomb of a performance against New England, should not be the Rookie of the Year. 15, the Las Vegas Raiders. Really kind of taking a hit these last couple weeks. They're very vulnerable. Should have lost to the Jets. They lost to Atlanta. And they lost to somebody else. I can't think of who on top of my head. Oh, the Chiefs. But everyone loses to the Chiefs. But they should have beaten the Chiefs, quite frankly, on that Sunday night. And I'm interested to see how they look these next couple weeks. Number 14, the Arizona Cardinals. This is a team that's absolutely collapsed. Kyler Murray doesn't look right. They played the Giants this week. Daniel Jones might be back, and the Giants' defense has been marvelous this season. I think could get to Kyler Murray, because the Cardinals' offensive line is one of the worst units in football. Nobody talks about that because of Kyler Murray's mobility. But, yeah, that's one of the worst units in the league. And Cliff Kingsbury, I don't think is that good of a coach either. And that's a coach that I think could get fired if they miss the playoffs, considering how good they started the season and Kyler Murray expectations, Hopkins trade, etc. Number 13, the Baltimore Ravens. That was a big and much-needed win against the Cowboys on Tuesday night. They have to win out for me if they want to make the playoffs, because the AFC is very loaded. Number 12, the Tennessee Titans. Because of that performance against the Browns, they're out of the top 10. Their defense was terrible. Their offense made that game very close, and it was a lot closer of a final score than it should have been. and the Browns just flat out dominated them. Number 11, the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins, kind of quietly still been winning games. Nobody's really talked about them. I think it's because of that stink bomb against Denver. Nobody is taking them seriously. Number 10, the Los Angeles Rams. I'm interested to see how they look tonight. They've had a couple big wins recently against the Bucs and against the Cardinals. Can they get another one against Belichick in primetime? Aaron Donald, I think, has to be ready for tonight to face that good Patriots run game. 9, the Cleveland Browns. That was a hell of a win for the Browns on Sunday, and I had them against the Titans. Baker Mayfield looked excellent, and now they're on primetime against the Ravens. And then they're on primetime the following week, too, against the Giants. They flexed that game into Sunday Night Football, and Cowboys 49ers got flexed to 1 o'clock, and then Jets Rams is at 4:05. So a 3-game schedule change for Week 15, and that Browns-Giants game was a wise pick for Sunday Night Football because obviously the Browns are playing for a playoff spot and potentially a division title depending on how the Steelers thing goes on Sunday night, which we'll talk about in a couple minutes. And the Giants are obviously playing for a division title, and that would have been the Odell Beckham return game, but obviously he's out for the season. So that's probably going to be a big storyline too, although Odell's not playing. Because obviously the Giants side of the trade, Jabril Peppers, great player on defense and special teams, and Dexter Lawrence was the draft pick they got back in that Odell deal. That was the first-round pick they got back, and he's a good player too. Number 8, the Seattle Seahawks. That was just a terrible loss against the Giants. They should not even be in the top 10, but they still are, and that's only because of Russell Wilson, and that was just a fluke game, I'd say, for them. And if that game proved anything, for me, I think it's more about the Giants' defense being awesome than it is about Seattle not being any good. Number 7, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The ton of pressure on them to come out and win against the Vikings on Sunday. That is a double under pressure game for both those teams, in my opinion, especially the Bucs, because I think the Vikes can afford the loss, but if they got the win, I think that puts them in the driver's seat. Because I think the Cardinals could lose to the Giants, and I think that the 49ers could lose to Washington and vice versa. But I think the Bucs are under a ton of pressure to win that game against the Vikes on Sunday. Because they are coming off 2 straight losses and a bye. Number 6, the Green Bay Packers. That's a team that's either vulnerable or kicks ass. They kicked ass against the Bears, and they're a little vulnerable against the Eagles. And the Eagles made that game close with Jalen Hurts late in that game on Sunday. 5, the Indianapolis Colts. When their defense is healthy, this looks like a top 5 team in the league. Phillip Rivers has been on and off at times, but he's been on when it matters, leading them to victories. They should be the AFC South winners. Number 4, the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen looked so good on Monday night. That was the best I've seen him since early in the season. He carried them to that victory. The Stephon Diggs is exactly the piece that offense needed. Zach Moss is a good player for them. Isaiah McKenzie's been scoring touchdowns for them. But their defense is still vulnerable. Number 3, the New Orleans Saints. The Saints have been really good even without Drew Brees on both sides of the ball. Taysom Hill has developed into a pretty fine passer these last few weeks. And we'll see if Brees is back on Sunday or not. If not, then it's obviously Taysom Hill, and it's still a drop-off in my opinion. Number 2, the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the team that's been number 1 over the last 2 months has finally dropped to the second spot after losing to Washington. TJ Watt should be the Defensive Player of the Year. He leads the league in sacks. And that was my preseason pick for that award. 3 of my preseason pick awards I think are going to happen. TJ Watt for Defensive Player of the Year. Dalvin Cook for Offensive Player of the Year. And then the next one I'm going to mention with the next team, obviously, which we'll get to. So, yeah, Pittsburgh, I think, could potentially lose their second straight game on Sunday night against the Bills. So the Steelers are under a lot of pressure. And they might not even win the AFC North if they lose this game to the Bills. So that's something worth monitoring. And number one, the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are the Chiefs, the reigning champions. Patrick Mahomes should be the MVP. That was my preseason pick. And I think it's a slam dunk that he's going to win it because he's still Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are 11-1. So there you have it. My power rankings for week number 14 of the 2020 NFL season. Now I want to discuss NBA protocols that are COVID related. So James Harden obviously was a no-show the first couple of days of workout. Now he's back. But he needs 6 straight negative tests in order to practice again. So obviously 6 straight negative tests I think has to be the key for a player to return to practice or to play. And if a player is to test positive, then they have to be sidelined for 12 days. And the league has not come up with a real plan yet for postponed games. But I think they have a plan, but they haven't released it yet. Adam Silver's smart, and I'm sure he has something up his sleeve. So yeah, if a player tests positive for COVID-19, they have to be sidelined for 12 days. And then I guess they have to have 6 negative tests in order to come back. That's a pretty strong protocol. And it's stronger than the NFL one because obviously the NBA is indoors rather than outdoors. And college basketball is still going on despite a ton of cancellations and pauses for programs left and right. And the majority of the sport is still playing. And they're getting games in. And some of these teams are putting in makeup games. So I think the NBA will handle this a little bit better than college basketball is from a standpoint of a protocols. And the NBA obviously wants to get all of its games in from a rating standpoint for their national TV games. So yeah, I just wanted to briefly touch on the NBA protocols for COVID-19. Now I'm going to recap yesterday's holiday episode of The Masked Singer. Interesting show. The final 3 contestants, Sun, Crocodile, and Mushroom, each performed the holiday song. Sun performed Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree by Brenda Lee. And then the second song they re-aired from the past was 'Cause I Love You by Lizzo. That was her first song. And then each of the contestants gave out a secret hint before their re-aired performance. And hers was, and the first one is that she disguised her voice on purpose so they wouldn't know who she is. And I personally think that this could very well be one Lady Gaga. Like I mentioned last week, the Sun's very talented, and I think she's super duper duper talented, and everyone knows how I feel about Lady Gaga, so it wouldn't stun me. And it sounded a lot like Gaga when she sang Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree last night. So, and I did hear a little bit of Christina Aguilera too, and that was my guess most of the season. So yeah, I absolutely think that Sun's a big star. But I'm suspicious about something. Last night on I Can See Your Voice, Katharine McPhee performed. Katharine McPhee is somebody that's been guest for the Sun a couple times. Katharine McPhee was the runner-up on American Idol to Taylor Hicks. There's been no American Idol-related clues, or else I would have been all over Katharine McPhee. Katharine McPhee should have been the runner-up to one Chris Daughtry, not Taylor Hicks. Katharine McPhee is very talented, but I personally think that this is a bigger star than Katharine McPhee. And some of the clues for me are not matching up with Katharine McPhee. Some of the clues are matching up with Christina Aguilera and Lady Gaga for me. They re-aired Seahorse's performance of My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion. And then Tori Kelly performed Sleigh Ride Normal at the end of the show. Crocodile's holiday song was Silent Night. And then his big clue before his re-aired performance of Bleeding Love by Leona Lewis was that he's friends with the Turtle, a.k.a. Jesse McCartney. So I'm going to stick with my guess. of A.J. McLean of the Backstreet Boys. It did sound a lot like him when he performed Silent Night. Mushroom, his Christmas song was the Christmas song by Nat King Cole, and he was just absolutely marvelous, and he had a different tone in that. The thing that's great about Mushroom is that he has so many different tones. And I think he's, I really don't know if this is Usher or RuPaul, because when he sings the high-pitched songs like This Woman's Work by Maxwell and Valerie by Amy Whitehouse, he sounds like Usher. And then when he sings a lower scaled song like the Christmas song by Nat King Cole, it sounds like RuPaul. And some of the clues are adding up to RuPaul. And so, for Mushroom, and then its secret clue was something about fooling the audience. So that's why I kind of think it might be Usher, but at the same time, I won't be shocked if it's RuPaul. So I'm going to stick with my 3 previous guesses from yesterday. Lady Gaga for the Sun, A.J. McLean for the Crocodile, and Usher for the Mushroom. They re-aired Squiggly Monster, a.k.a. Bob Saget's performance of I Can't Get No Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones. That was the episode where he got voted off. They re-aired Snow Owls, a.k.a. Lisa Hartman and Clint Flack. The Prayer by Celine Dion and Andrea Bocelli. That was their second performance. They re-aired Jellyfish, a.k.a. Chloe Kim. Don't Start Now by Dua Lipa. That was her last performance before she got voted off. And then they re-aired Serpent, a.k.a. Dr. Elvis's performance of I'm Gonna Be 500 Miles by the Proclaimers. He was awesome singing that song. And then, Popcorn, a.k.a. Taylor Dane. They re-aired her performance to Domino by Jessie J. Now is one of her throw-off performances. And then they re-aired Dragon, a.k.a. Busta Rhymes' Mama Said Knock You Out by LL Cool J. And then in the middle of the show, they aired a trailer for The Masked Dancer, which we will cover on the podcast. I'll give out my predictions on who I think's on The Masked Dancer on the Christmas Eve podcast. And we're not going to do a podcast Christmas Day. And then obviously Christmas is a Friday, so Saturday, Sunday, no podcasts. So we'll preview The Masked Dancer on the podcast on Christmas Eve. And what was big about their trailer was that they revealed that there are clues everywhere. And they have dancing, and then dancing clues, and then they only show their talking voice once. But I think that's a little much, the talking voice, because what if one of the judges knows the talking voice so well? So there's no singing. So it's talking voice, some dancing clues, and then stage presence clues as well as the clues of the clue package. So there's clues everywhere. Craig Robinson's the host. The judges are Paula Abdul, Ashley Tisdale, Brian Austin Green, and Ken Jeong. And it's only fitting that Ken Jeong is a judge on The Masked Dancer. So it's going to be a fun show, and I'm obviously going to analyze that show like I analyzed The Masked Singer on this show. And now my best bet of the day, brought to you by FanDuel. I am going to go with Texas Rio Grande minus 3.5 against A&M Corpus Christi. I know it's a game that nobody is going to watch, but I just have an enormous edge on Texas Rio Grande tonight that I have to take advantage of it. And the juice is on Corpus Christi at minus 115, so I'm getting value here. Minus 3.5 at minus 105 with Texas Rio Grande Valley. So there you have it, my best bet of the day. That's it for the podcast today. I'll be back tomorrow recapping Thursday Night Football, the 2 college football games, and looking ahead to the weekend's games in each sports. I'm going to have my Fab Five and my best bet for you as well. College basketball, we'll go over the games from yesterday and look ahead to the weekend in college basketball as well. Any other NHL or NBA related news I'll have for you on the podcast, and same for MLB free agency /trades. Hope you guys have a great day, everyone.